felt like making a video, just have some thoughts that I can look to express, being that it's been some time. For my own self, I don't like just making videos to make videos when I don't necessarily have anything of a certain sense that's relatively new to say. I'm not just going to look to talk just to talk. Try to be intentional whenever I'm looking to play something for somebody else to hear me about. The time we have to do whatever we have to do or want to do is valuable. So I just feel like nowadays, see so many people coming out with a lack of substance, and it's affecting people in the time that they're able to consume. So I'm not trying to waste people's time in that regard, even though sometimes I'd be just rambling and shit, but just try to keep it on a minimum and keep the basis of what I'm talking about foundational. It shouldn't be something that is new. Nothing is new under the sun, ultimately, for where we see things today, especially. So not filling your mind with other people's thoughts, it can be a good thing. I just think that, again, with today's world, we're always listening to somebody else's mind and their fucking way of being and all this shit. We're not really getting into where we're at and just canceling out the noise. I think that should be something that should go on more. These type of conversations is of a different essence, though. It's not comparable to the different type of things most people would generally look to tune into. But it goes for anything, but especially for those traditional, typical, popular type of things that people look to pay attention and mind into. But yeah, with this form of conversation is looking into the origin of things. Seeing where things start, not just getting fixated on where things could go or where things may even be currently for some people. We're talking about the basis of the reality here for the different type of points that we talk about in this conversation. And when looking at the origination of things for this reality here, H.P. Lovecraft, he had a saying that fear is the first of all emotions. And that is a very significant statement, that fear is the first emotion that's expressed, that's internalized when you come here. You come here through fear. And we see that with a baby when we first, see them get delivered. They're crying, screaming, going through pain. Fear is the first emotion of all emotions. You can get a book, NecroYoga, The Physics of Darkness. It'll go into these different type of points. With that being the case, that the fear is, what we have as the foundation. I mean, it's pretty important seeing that as the staple point to this existence. It shows how there's a friction, a clear tension going on, because it clearly doesn't just stop from there that, it may be the first emotion or whatever, but from there, everything is roses and butterflies and it's no problem. But no, there's plenty of problems that still continue. Their foundation to everything that we do is essentially solving a problem. So it should, again, just go to show the origination, the source of all the different byproduct of things that we can look to do with seeing how that's the case. And if you know that that's the case, when it talks with concepts of like ethics, a moral conduct set of code, it doesn't take much from there, let alone any other way you can come to this type of mentality to then abstain from procreating. So when you see people that do, it just goes to show that at least ignorance, they are not aware, they are oblivious to some degree, or willingness to proceed with their natural biology. And so when it comes to the environment, the actual, you can say society, the culture that we're brought up in, it's always going to get worse. And I don't think that's something that's understood by most that look to continue this process, that in terms of the mentality, again, the culture of those around us, it's going to get worse. Because simple points, just like I prior mentioned for everything I just mentioned before, it's disregarded. So there's no ethical standard that's really being upheld by society. There wouldn't be a society, there wouldn't be anything going on here, as we know, for those listening, if, we actually look to value these things, value the pain, value the feelings of those that are being affected. So that's why when people say things like the end times and whatnot, all that's talking about is people just, whether being, again, ignorant or willing to do nature's duty, which is the devil's duty in a certain sense, and just promote harm, promote suffering, right? Which is evil, basically promoting unnecessary harm for your own sake. That's basically evil. If you were to define evil, that's the basic essence, one could say. So again, the morality, the ethical standard of the world will just continue to get worse and worse, because while we do have technological advances and all this form of intellectualism that's going on, the wisdom still is lacking, because again, this type of stuff would be pretty dispersed within the masses, and it's not, because people essentially don't care, or for some that might be willing to abstain, They might be just simply oblivious to this type of mentality, which compels me to just from time to time again, let alone on the interwebs, but in my own life, to just put this type of mentality out there to ensure people know what the fuck is the most sensible thing to do. And that's the funny part, because we're not doing anything. And it shows just the true mental illness going on. That was one of my first videos. I kind of deleted a lot of my videos because just wanted to get to the basic of things. It wasn't necessary to still keep up certain videos. Just wanted to put the gist of certain videos that are still currently up. But again, the true mental illness is the actual innate biology that we would look to do, you know, inherently. That's the true mental illness, looking to promote the nature of this world. Simple things like suffering. We say this term suffering and people say, oh, I'm not suffering, or suffering isn't that bad, or whatever. But ideally speaking, when we come first to understand and come to a agreement to what this term suffering is, had a video on that. Basically, it's just you're in a current state where you are not wanting to be in that current state at bottom. And with that, being that you're in a conscious state, you're likely consciously or subconsciously thinking of another different alternative state that you would rather be in, even if it's nothingness, no thing here. That's suffering. That's the essence of it. You're in something and you would rather get out of it. And you have a conscious thought of what you would perceive, what you would prefer, what out of it is to you. And that's what we are all going through. It don't even matter when it comes to humans. Any sentient, you see it. You see them looking to fix the current state of problem that they're in. That's the origination of consciousness. So if someone were to say the whole point of existence is to suffer, factually, within observational reality, that's what's going on. When you look at anybody and what they're doing, we are fixing the current state that we're in. We are not whole in this existence, and that's a fact. When you look at the day-to-day of anyone, any sentient being here, we are shifting ourselves to a different state repeatedly on a hamster wheel type shit. So again, yeah, suffering is the point of existence. It's the only thing that's pure because it shows the type of energy output too that's going on. We're not, again, with the friction going on, there's a tension, clearly. And so we're just calling the spade for what it is. And people that may not like that term, suffering, motherfuckers are scared of words. I don't know. They just need to be honest when it comes to what these words mean. The intention behind these sayings, it's clear as day. If you, again, want to be mature, honest, and fair to yourself and those that you can affect, this is just what it is. Comes also to the point that people need to stop thinking like a creature. We're currently in this carnal flesh and people get fixated on that, but we don't have to. Talk about within our conscious mind, we can think more of ourselves than that because we technically are. It's, you can say, hard to grasp, but really all that's identifying is the essence, quote unquote, of you was more than this current self. We get fixated on the whole, what's going to happen after I die, when there was something, quote unquote, happening before you were here. So again, there's more than this creature self than you that you are currently in. So people just are valuing this limiting finite self when it's not the true auspicious state. And it gets really tiresome when I see this happening on a day-to-day. I don't even know what people are really doing. At bottom, like we mentioned before, with the point of existence being to suffer, when you look at the essence at bottom of what people are doing on a day-to-day, it's just relieving, right? Relieving some type of pressure, whether it's trying to strive to, basically it's all just hunger, pissing, shitting, orgasm type of pleasure. We're all alleviating a prior state, again, in a suffering state, innately. That's at the bottom what we're doing. Being so, I just don't get how people be trying to make an excuse for this existence. And it's just going to be telling, for me personally, I'm still relatively young, have some people that I've grown up with. I've said it enough to people within my own proximity, this type of mentality. And it should just be interesting just to see how things will look to shape up. One of the true clear indicators for seeing a certain spiritual prowess of a person is, again, whether or not clearly if they procreate. It's very simple, especially in this day and age. Not that this type of topic conversation is that of a common conversation topic, but if you are of that certain mentality mindset, you will come to find this. If you have that much of a concerning, compassionate mind, you should look to come across this to some extent, let alone within your own self. So it's there for people if they are of that mind. So again, just personally speaking, given that I'm not like that yet down the road in terms of the age of things, just seeing how for people that I know, and I know for the most part, motherfuckers for the most part are going to do what most people do. But I just find interest with seeing those that may look to reverse this process in nature. So the future will be very telling to see what the future holds. And it's something within our own power, this conversation. This is something that we all have the control of. So we'll see who has the value in taking a part of this understanding. And on the flip end, you have things like transhumanism. People want to talk about the idea of us becoming more, if you want to say robotic, or less of our current origination of things. But in a certain sense, you can also say that we're already there. And whether or not you want to say we're there or not, and that things can get worse, I mean, if anything, that should only prove the point. Then why are you promoting this when you don't have really any dictation, any one of us directly, in the functioning implementation that goes on in this society? And it's going to be inevitably imposed on future offspring. So they're going to look to cultivate and get accustomed to new such technologies, such that we have already within our own current time frame. And so they're going to, again, get used to these new forms of technological advancements within things like the healthcare industry. They're not going to care about any type of babble we have to say about it, that, oh, watch out for this. They're going to think you're a schizo or some shit. They don't care. It's their now norm. It just blows me when people get so caught up with AI or transhumanism or any of these future negative outlook of things, but then they're still promoting the future in that conventional sense with procreating. Shit is mind-boggling. So this type of stuff does revolve around the Politrics type of things, and that's one of the other videos that I deleted, just not ultimately too necessary. Anyone within that realm should already know that it's an unfortunate reality that we have to have a representative set of bodies that don't actually represent us. It's just a terrible set of circumstances that we all have to deal with. And so being the case, again, with the actual control that we have, it doesn't make sense to place another person to have to be in that predicament. I don't understand how we understand these sets of circumstances, yet we're unnecessarily putting it on somebody else to have to deal with. It's low standards. That's all it is. People don't have any honest, fair, and truly mature is the key word, ethical code. Because I'm going to tell you right now, these are simple points. They don't make no damn sense. I have to put somebody got to deal with any of this bullshit. Don't make no damn sense when it comes to that realm of things with the Politrics. So it don't matter if you even be watching the news or not. I mean, the very fact that we have to learn about some type of news, we have to be privy to daily news or some shit is already so subordinate that you have to keep up with this reoccurring set of information that isn't directly affiliated with you. You have no direct connection with, but it still indirectly affects you. It's crazy. It's crazy how people accept this. So from before, one of my most common videos, the one with the antinatalism and work, Efilism work, whatever. It's just a clear thing. Most people, obviously, when it comes to that idea or reality of work, it's like, what the fuck? So there's many of this type of group of people with antinatalism or Efilism that want to be likely, say, left-wing, essentially, that, again, this form of hierarchy, especially with work and just the form of exploitation that goes on, understanding the lack of ethics is all it really comes down to, that gets involved with that. That's cool. That's cool. Late stage capitalism is another term, but it's not going all the way necessarily. We can hate against this current set of economic modes with the economic model of, we can even say, people say techno-feudalism, technocracy, oligarchies, all these different terms, hating basically, again, the current economic model, right? People that are listening to this, right, you guys are not propagating this existence, but that realm of things it's just, again, the term maturity. If you're truly mature, you can talk about those points about, all these different vices and corruptions going on within that industry of our, again, societal, political model of, again, capitalism, whatever term you want to say, crony cap, it doesn't matter. You understand the faults going on, and then you want to promote this shit at the same time and place another of your loved ones in such of a detriment? That doesn't make sense. I don't understand these simple concepts that everyone gripes about. But then for the majority of people, they're putting other people to have to deal with it. How does that make sense? I can't deal with people. I really can't. Because when you come to this type of end of the road, in a sense, for those of us that are listening to this, I'm preaching to the choir, right? And then you see how people move in life in this accord. I'm talking specifically, right, of course, within the conventional reality of people looking to follow the process of nature with procreating. It's one of the most ignorant things. It's just crazy. You got people, again, going further with the Politrics work is tomato with that. And again, in terms of the transhumanism element, AI, people getting worried about losing their jobs. The very fact that you're in this position of being troubled, worrisome, of losing your job, when in reality, given AI, they're going to do your job more efficiently. The fact that we're in this position where we're not able to really advance further because we need this concept of a fucking job for everybody. Just these different barbaric things that we're looking to upkeep because, oh, that's always how it's been or some shit. We're not truly advancing. That's what I'm saying about the wisdom. There's a lot of intelligence going on, sure, but the wisdom is lacking because the fact that people are having to be so in this state of, oh, they're going to take my jobs. I don't want AI. When again, AI, let me tell you, it's handy. The very fact that you even use fucking an internet or some shit, like that's a form of accessible information, AI. So it's just, people are just within different scales of things. That's with like the moral relativism. It's just, they're not talking at bottom. At bottom, this is all fucked up. So if you're wanting to play the fucked up game, you don't then stop at AI. You stop at the very fact that there's this source of suffering in existence, okay? AI is not the problem. The problem is within oneself. The very fact that we're talking of any such issue or problems. So motherfuckers got their shit so off balance. Again, the main issue is this suffering, the alleviation, the maintaining of the standard of living from the inherent deprivation that comes within being in a human body, all the selfishness that comes with all this shit, working for an imaginary currency. I don't get it. Yeah, it's sad. You know, it's just, like I said before, low standards. This all starts within oneself and the mentality you have. We're not doing anything. You're just contemplating life in this reality. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So I just don't care. Going back again with the Politrics and people wanting to talk about anything of any morality set of, you have the one recent Charlie Kirk incident or any type of killing, any type of, oh, this is wrong energy. The most ultimate wrong is the very fact that we're promoting this. So if we start at that source of things, the foundation of things here, any of these then subsequent, you know what I'm saying, symptom type of, oh, this is wrong, is such a belittling to the actual fact of the matter that should be of concern to all of us. The very fact that there's a concern. These motherfuckers just are not, I don't know, man. It doesn't add up. They're not there yet. So like before, talking about that the purpose of life is to suffer. You know, people talk about what's the purpose of this existence? You know, there's no purpose. We do know, though, that for whatever you do for a standard of living, you can say in a certain sense that being your work is tied to your purpose. And when someone can authentically say that what I'm doing for my living is my purpose, that I'm here to do this and I get paid to do this, for most people, they would agree that that's a privilege. It's a privilege to say that you're getting paid to do what you see as your purpose. Because I'm going to tell you right now, likely, I'm not going to look to say for all people, but likely most people are not being paid to do what they say is their purpose for being here. Talking personally, I don't know what else outside of this realm of thought is my quote unquote purpose. And this is a very touchy, controversial, unfortunately, type of subject. You know what I mean? So now you're talking about this, because if I had to say this, if I have a certain purpose for how I am within my own self, if I had to say, it would be something like this, right? But again, you look into the reality of things. Again, I'm not getting no damn money for this. This is just out of my own compassion, being compelled to voice this certain light that's been out. I'm just another echo in it. So again, when I see people talk about this is my purpose and they get money for it and all this shit, great for you, bro, or whoever, great for you. But man, how selfish in a sense that within your reality, there's all this fucked up shit going on and your purpose is so compartmentalized within your narcissistic self, right? Because you got to think, if you're saying that whatever motherfuckers are saying is a purpose and it's not revolving this around this type of mentality, that shit is so fucked up. Again, with the low standards within the ethical merit of things, that's what it is. Because how can you say that you have a purpose like that with all, again, the fucked up shit that's going on? That's crazy. Yet and still, when it comes to many people, when it comes to them saying they are living their purpose,
Not that is something that they're living for, but again, they're getting compensated for it for their standard of living. Oftentimes you hear that they get tiresome, apathetic for that practice that they're, again, continuing repeatedly, because it's not just now that you're doing it out of your own freedom. It's something that you're fixed to have to do, right? Because we know with such set of reoccurring conditions that we're in, reoccurring costs that we have to fulfill, again, such set purpose or living your passion, things become not as what it used to be, just frankly put, right? It becomes more dull. So it's just crazy. And then on the flip end, you have people that say there's no purpose, right? That life is pointless, that if you want to say that there is a purpose, that it's just the biological need to procreate, that clearly that's the clear drive that, sentience is living out. But again, for people that say that life is pointless, that I would say that's a good thing in this current context in actuality, because, and you can tell me in the comments, this is one of those sometimes where I'm like, what, I'm kind of confused on my own part. What point, what purpose would people want? The very fact that we would want a purpose seems deficient, subordinate, asking out of oneself to do something very cuckold. It doesn't make sense to me. And just going back to this entirety of things with the ethical matter, looking to place somebody in the detriment that you're in. These terms, morality, ethics, you can say it's the same thing. I think there's a separation with ethics, more so dealing with reasoning out of the morality. I don't say that I'm quote unquote an ethical person, just because I am understanding of the subject of antinatalism or Efilism and how this world and the function of it is not ethical. Just because I can understand that does not then, for how I see things for my own sake, mean that I'm then an ethical person, even if I abstain from promoting such a existence. It just means that I'm not as bad than another person. When you're dealing with a shitty situation and you're not promoting this shittiness, yeah, you can say that you're a good person or whatever, sure. But I'm more so I'm just less shitty. I'm out here still doing things for my own self. Nature is inherently unethical. I'm in this nature right now. I'm maybe not of this world, but I'm in it. So I just wanted to make a point when it comes to the ethical things that, again, I don't spout that I'm an ethical person. I'm just not as unethical when it comes to the source of things than, say, the typical person. And even just having to be ethical, having to feel the need, the ought to be compassionate unto others. It goes back to this, why are we having to place people to be these different characterizations? So it's just once you're able to really point out the true ethical merits of things, and once you are able to look to stand up for that, then again, with how I mentioned before, that the morality of future generations are just going to be worse and worse. The ethical or moral code is only going to get much worse, because again, these simple points, for those that know it, should then follow through with the implications of it. So then they're not continuing this with their lineage, right? So those that are, they're only making this worse for those that are going to be here in the future. So that's how we see it. That's why, you know what I'm saying? When you see people in the past, they say, oh, this was so great back then. Why are things so shitty now? Well, this is in part the reason, because people don't, whether knowingly know these things, or if they may do, they still willingly follow the course of nature, which is crazy. And there's a term called reverse justification, basically for those that, whether they're just programmed with the nature, they're going to continue this process, and they may get privy to this type of topic subject. And when it comes to them, again, they're justifying what they're doing. But at the same time, had they not been privy to it, you know what I mean? They're just going to do it. But because now they're talking to, say, you or I, now they're wanting to, again, reverse justify why they're doing what they do. And even though that was never a conscious contemplation on their end, they're only doing it now to look to defend why they want to do what they already want to do. So it's just, again, this self-rationalization going on that we see ad nauseum for really anything that anyone's doing, but especially in this accord with procreating. And that's all it is. It's the me world. And, we're getting people to get fucked up from it by affiliation. It's simple things when people say things like life is unfair. Again, we there's simple concepts where you can add it up together, but people don't want to really see what the implication holds. And it just goes to the childish mentality of people not looking at the cost for what these things are going to add up to for all that are included. They're just focused on whatever that they can personally gain. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of being around that type of thing. I don't know how people, if they're privy to it, they just ignore this subject. I can't imagine being on the flip end to it. I really can't. And with this topic right now of ethics, I always before mention the term of veganism, and I always say from there that I'm not a vegan. But this isn't that, like this is more than, dealing with your physical nutrition and supplementation. This conversation is much more than that, despite the fact that, of course, given your diet regimen in that way with carnism, you are directly adding to the suffering of other sentient beings with looking to promote such a way of eating. But on top of that, you're placed to be imposed to have to be in that state to begin with, right? So this procreating type of topic is definitely the initiator before we get to that then symptom of, again, sustaining oneself in this condition. So I can't, there's just no excuse. I can't deal with it with other people. And just the excuses, again, that they try to say with things, it comes back to the culture and how vampiric this all is, how we're feeding off of each other in many different ways. There's those that are technically feeding off of us that are entities more than what we can technically consciously imagine. Even the very fact when you hear people say that, oh, you chose to come here, it's not you. Okay, when people say these different terms of you doing something to you, when you weren't you in this sense, again, with people who hasn't heard, oh, you chose to come here. You have no power of that accord, right? Us, for the way that we know we to be, are within this third dimensional reality. And that's all that we, in this sense, are going to know. And in a sense, that's a relief, honestly, when you think about it. But again, these are just kind of semantics, and people can get lost in the communication of things. But again, saying that term of you is a bit of a misnomer. Even in, if, with this whole quantum reality of things, if you were to say there's another reality of quote unquote you, it's not you. That's a whole other entity, even if it has the same characteristics being of you, you are not that. It's just, there's just different levels that are going on in this existence. It reminds me of the show Severance and how they had a whole innie and outie characterization of the different people in that show. And clearly that's a great representation where you have, again, someone that's quote unquote you, but now you're placed in a reality that you did not choose to be in. So it goes to those different dimension of things and the imposition that takes place and such. And you can say too, it's kind of a bit of a compulsion. The very fact that we're here in this conscious state is a bit of a compulsion in and of itself. It's separating oneself into differentiation from the non-differentiated state. It's when you go to the whole Satan Lucifer story, making the 1/3 differentiation from the God source. It's that you feel compelled to do your own thing for whatever sake, but it's very detrimental. It's talk about subordinate. It comes with many costs and frictions. And that's in part what we're dealing with right now. So this ties into with religion and how people want to promote that there's a God that is guiding us through this process, right? Through the slaughterhouse, that there's an entity that's watching us, the beloved that's, again, wanting this to happen. It's one thing when you see the corruption within our own subjectivity of human civilization with things like socioeconomic politics and just that culture, traditional realm of things. But then there's another element of that on top for the structure of religion and the corruption in that, where it's just not within the framework of this existence, but you still see the vices being played forth when it comes to this transcendence principle and trying to impose this, you can just say, deception onto mankind. So it's just deceiving people in the aspirations that humans can look to strive for. You see people with saying they're on a spiritual journey when it's all just fuckery. If it's anything spiritual, it's just looking to preserve the unborn, which is of this type of mentality, not looking to promote this world and place the unborn to then be born in this contract of birth and death, right? I don't know whatever any other spiritual journey people can look to talk about. This is kind of in tangent to the truth community saying that, oh, we need to stand up for truth, this, that, the fourth. If we do, then there wouldn't be any society. There really wouldn't be. Society is founded upon lies at bottom. The very fact that we maintain the things that we maintain, it's all lies. And we know this from any different type of pillar of this society that we want to look to identify. It's founded upon just deception. So when it comes to the relationships with people, personally speaking, and I know I'm sure those listening can relate, not much relationships that I can really value in a certain sense when it comes to this form of mentality. Because again, people want to promote this world. This is a very niche type of mindset to come into this realm of things. But, even with relationships, the certain element of it for a certain aspect of romance and marriage and all that, it's all just programming from how I see it. I'm not saying that personally people don't, You know, we definitely do have a affinity for one another, but the way that it gets programmed into now this culture of needing to get then married, and then of course with the foundation of marriage, it is to promote the family type of unit. There's an orchestration being done with this, and again, it ties in with religion. So it's just sad. Not much to say about relationships. It's just all, again, programmed, and it's like the fear of missing out. You see all these other people, again, we get grown up to have to feel the desire to have another person in your life in that type of regard. So it's just people copying each other. There's no originality when it comes to how you see people maintain those type of significant other type of relationships, let alone even any typical relationships with their family, friends, any type of the foundation of it. It's so faulty. And many can look to recognize it, you know what I'm saying? But most are promoting it. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, in terms of those other videos that I used to have, I just wanted to make some different points. So I've already talked before, like the truth community, just a simple point. And then from before, I mentioned from religion. So in terms of with death, first off, it's the certain realization that we're currently in the death state right now. To truly be of a understanding to that we're currently dead right now is an important realization for every one of us to come to understand. Again, that we're dead right now. This is the land of the living dead. When you see how we are eating other life forms that are dead for us to then eat, we are the living dead. If there's anything that's going to be associated towards death, this is that. So just wanted to make a point about that. And so being that's the case in all of this, what I can mention with the low standards, just you don't want to be compromised to the bullshit. Anyone that is able to be or non-compromised to this state of being, that's all it is. You're just putting a middle finger, a fat no to any of this functioning and trying to defend it.
And going in a bit of tangent to that non-compromised state mentioned before with life being of a death state. Not too long ago, I had one of my subscribers reach out to me. They were letting me know they just felt this compulsion, this desire that bred out of them to end their existence here. I mentioned before with how, we know existence is inherently fucked up, unethical from the atom on up. They just felt that given that case, and if they're trying to live up to a certain ethical code, that they should not continue their existence, let alone, of course, propagating a new one. And I completely understood where they were coming from. I didn't know what they necessarily expected me to say. Maybe part of them thought I was going to change their mind or offer something new. No, I'm not any different than anyone listening to this. I'm just sometimes putting out recordings and shit. But nah, that's a very understandable conclusion because, yes, it makes sense in the rationality aspect of it for what they're looking to point out for the merit they're about. You know what I mean? And it's a good thing. From one of my videos before with suicide, we come here out of something that's really not our direct will. So to leave on your own accord, that's an admirable thing to see yourself to do. You know what I mean? So it's, I just told them, hey, it is what it is. If that's what you feel led to do, who am I? I'm not going to stop you. There's no sugarcoating or anything like that. And it comes also with that, this whole idea of you don't want to be bothered also. I mean, again, I mentioned earlier, when you come into this existence, it's first from, you want to say, the oblivion, the wherever else, nothing here-ness, and now you're, quote unquote, as if like it's a surprise, you're here in existence. If that's the case, right, then like people want to say this is a positive thing, this life, like why wouldn't you? You should be happy that you're here upon birth. But see that's where this whole subjectivity comes to play a part, because suffering is within subjectivity. So to point out a simple example, just to say again, like the concept of a party, you're around other people. It can be just simply as the fact that you would rather not be around a certain set of people. You know what I mean? Like with existence, there's going to be all these different groups of people now that you have to just deal with, even if it's not a direct link with your everyday existence. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just over there, even far off, miles away, but they're still here. You hear about them, any bullshit that you may not like that they're doing. You know what I mean? And how you have to kind of just live with it. You know what I mean? Like what is so important of putting people to have to be bothered, even mentally, of knowing such triviality that they're around? You know what I mean? You can say that maybe what I'm talking about is whatever-ism. Sure, I don't give a damn. But the very concept, like I said, like most people don't want to be around most people, okay? So the subjectivity element with consciousness, it's not as cracked up as what it seems to be. This individuality. It's people say that God wanted to just kind of honestly fuck around, and that's why we're here. And there's no way people try to make an excuse or try to rationalize why this is going on. It's literally insane, right? So you have on one spectrum on the right end, you have insane, crazies in the middle, and then rationality, you can say, is on the left end, just the opposite end of insane. And when you look at the makeup to the world, let alone how we're maintaining it, it's all insane. When you really mean anyone that's going to hear you understand that. The craziness is people that can see it, but they're not necessarily going all the way, right? They're still wanting to maintain this quote unquote party, you know what I mean? And then the rationality part is, okay, well, what can we do? What makes sense? You know, what's out there that's feasible for us to do that's effective? And with that, at bottom, it's obviously not fucking, you know, promoting it, and it's reversing the nature. And so with that, it's implying not procreating, let alone, again, to my one past subscriber that I mentioned, it can go up to the point that you just pull out the plug for your own. So I just wanted to mention with, again, subjectivity, it's not as cracked up as what it seems to be. There's always going to be these striving things with this concept of subjectivity. And in this type of existence, it comes with so much cost. And motherfuckers just have to really assess that, understand that, because it's something that we all have to face, let alone people that we may look to place here. And I can't believe people don't really value contemplating before you're putting somebody here. It's just,